Brent was known to hike Red Rock often and even posted photos from the trails around the same weekend Mark and Lisa went missing. But when questioned, he claimed he hadn't seen or spoken to them since the argument. His alibi was shaky, and yet there was no hard evidence linking him to the scene. Then came another twist. A park ranger found a torn piece of fabric wedged between two rocks far from the main trail. It didn't match anything previously recovered, but it did match an old backpack model. Brent was known to carry .now as the investigation closes in. More questions hang in the air. Was it a setup? Did Mark and Lisa discover something they weren't supposed to? And what or who was out there in the canyon that night? Just as the case seemed to zero in on Brent, a second twist sent shockwaves through the investigation. Forensic analysis of the video revealed something that no one had noticed at first. In the last few frames, just behind Mark's shoulder, a faint silhouette appeared. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't Lisa. It was tall, still, and strangely out of place. Zoomed in and enhanced, the figure seemed to be watching them from the shadows. That was the moment investigators realized this wasn't just about Brent anymore. The discovery led to a new line of questioning. Could there have been a third person involved? Someone unknown to both Mark and Lisa. A person who knew the back trails of Red Rock Canyon well enough to stay hidden for years. Rangers began combing through old incident reports, and that's when they found something buried deep in the archives, a string of unconnected complaints over the past 10 years. Hikers reporting a man in the rocks, someone living off-grid, moving silently through the canyons, watching but never approaching. Most reports were dismissed as hallucinations or paranoia. But now, they didn't seem so far-fetched. Meanwhile, Lisa's sister received an anonymous package, no return address. Inside was a small notebook, weather-damaged and partially burned. On the first page, Lisa's handwriting, her final journal entries. She wrote about feeling uneasy on the trail, about hearing someone following them footsteps that stopped when they stopped, a presence they couldn't see. On the last leg of their hike, she wrote something chilling. "We're being hunted. Mark doesn't want me to panic, but I can tell he's scared." With Brent's connection growing weaker and a new faceless threat emerging from the canyon's shadows, the truth feels closer, but far more dangerous than anyone ever imagined. With pressure mounting and media attention surrounding the case, authorities launched a full-scale sweep of the back trails and hidden ridges of Red Rock Canyon. This time, they brought in thermal drones and deep-ground radar. Days into the search, a small cave entrance was uncovered behind a rockslide near a dry creek bed, one that hadn't been visible in years. Inside, search teams made the chilling discovery. In the darkness of the cave, they found skeletal remains, torn scraps of clothing, and Lisa's engagement ring wedged between two stones. Forensic tests confirmed the worst Mark and Lisa had died there. But how they got there and why still wasn't fully clear. Then, deeper inside, they found evidence someone else had been living there. Empty food wrappers, makeshift bedding, and markings on the walls. Dozens of them. One symbol kept repeating gay, crude shape, like an eye watching. Authorities eventually tracked the markings to a man known only by a nickname in local hiking circles. The Watcher? A recluse who had disappeared from society nearly 15 years earlier. Once a park guide, he was believed to have gone off-grid after a personal breakdown. He knew Red Rock Canyon like no one else. It's believed he'd been living undetected, watching hikers, tracking movement. Some say he had his own system choosing people who wandered too far from the marked trails, but here's the twist no one saw coming. Brent had known about the Watcher all along. Digging into his past, detectives found a journal entry from Brent's private computer, notes about Mark's hiking plans, mentions of the caveman, and one line that stood out. Asterisk, if he follows the signal, I won't have to lift a finger. Brent hadn't killed them, but he had set them up to walk right into something much darker, and he almost got away with it. After Brent's journal entry was uncovered, authorities had enough to bring him in. During questioning, he admitted to knowing about the man living in Red Rock Canyon. He never warned Mark and Lisa because he saw it as a chance to silence Mark without ever getting his own hands dirty. He believed no one would ever find them, and for nearly 4 years he was right. But in the end, his silence became his undoing. Brent was charged with reckless endangerment and obstruction of justice. While the Watcher had vanished again before he could be captured, his hideout was dismantled, and the trail where Mark and Lisa disappeared was permanently closed off. A memorial now stands near the base of the ridge, with flowers, photos, and the words "gone, but not forgotten." Lisa's sister, who had fought so hard to keep the case alive, said in an interview, "They didn't deserve what happened. But they will always be more than a mystery. They were two people deeply in love, who never gave up on each other." Though Red Rock Canyon mystery left a lasting impact on everyone who followed it. Hikers are now urged to stay on marked trails, and rangers have increased patrols in the area. The case became a reminder that even the most beautiful places can hold dark secrets. And while not every question was answered, like who exactly the Watcher was or where he went, one thing became clear: some truths hide in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to be found. Mark and Lisa's story is more than just a tale of loss. It's a story about love, silence, danger, and how even in the middle of nowhere, one choice, one step can change everything. Her name was Mia. She wasn't a celebrity, didn't grow up rich, and never cared much for designer labels or high society circles. She'd been raised in a quiet town, worked her way through college with 2 jobs, and met Daniel, her husband, long before the world knew his name. Back then, he was just another hard-working entrepreneur, building a startup from his garage and sharing dreams over late-night takeout. They fell in love before the billions, before the headlines, before the power. And even after Daniel's success skyrocketed, Mia stayed the same, grounded, kind, and almost invisible to the outside world. But that wedding changed something. It wasn't just the stares or the whispers that night. It was the way people treated her, as if she was less. The bride, Vanessa, had once been a college acquaintance of Mia's, someone who had always looked down on her, even back then. But Mia had let it go. This time, though, the laughter felt colder. The way Vanessa introduced her, not as Mia, but Daniel's little charity case, hit differently. It wasn't just rude. It was meant to humiliate, and Daniel noticed. He had always respected Mia's wish to stay out of the spotlight. She didn't need fancy cars or her face on magazine covers. But after that night, something shifted. Daniel made a quiet promise. To himself, not out of anger, but out of love and deep respect. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't call anyone out. He just left the wedding early with Mia by his side and a thoughtful look in his eyes. WHA noticed. No one realized, not Vanessa, not her husband, not the smirking bridesmaids, was that the company Vanessa bragged about owning wasn't as stable as it seemed. And Daniel, Mark, and Lisa were the kind of couple people described as picture perfect. They had just moved in together, freshly engaged, and spent their weekends chasing sunsets and hiking new trails. Friends said they were adventurous but responsible, always checking in, always sharing their location. That's why their sudden disappearance from Red Rock Canyon felt so wrong. It wasn't just unexpected, it was completely out of character. The morning they left for the hike, they posted a quick photo from the trailhead, smiling, holding hands with the canyon stretching out behind them. That was the last anyone ever heard from them when they didn't return that night. Concerned friends contacted the park rangers. Within 24 hours, a full-scale search was underway. Trained dogs, drones, even thermal imaging. Nothing. Authorities believed they had made it past the first few miles of the trail. But after that, it was like the earth had swallowed them whole. There were no personal items left behind, no calls made from their phones, and no evidence of an animal attack or a fall. The case made headlines across the region. For a time, their faces were everywhere: news reports, social media campaigns, candlelight vigils. Their families refused to give up, but as months passed, tips slowed and leads dried up. Red Rock Canyon, once seen as a peaceful hiking destination, became a place whispered about in town. Locals spoke of strange sounds, of hikers getting an eerie feeling near the trail's back routes. And now, 4 years later, one early morning jogger, a man who'd never even heard of the case, makes a shocking discovery buried beneath a ridge, something hidden, something out of place. But what he finds raises even more questions and opens the door to a truth no one was ready for. Jogger's name was Darren, a local teacher who ran the same path every morning before sunrise. That day, he decided to take a different route, one that curved off the main trail and dipped into a shaded, rocky area rarely visited. He'd never gone that way before. Something about it always felt a bit off, but curiosity won out. And just as the early lights started to break through the canyon walls, he saw it. A glint of metal half buried under the dust and brush. At first, he thought it was trash. Then he realized it was part of a phone, cracked, weathered, but still intact enough to spark recognition. It had a faint sticker on the back. A sticker Lisa's sister would later confirm Lisa had put there herself. Police were called immediately. Within hours, search teams returned to Red Rock Canyon, this time with more questions than ever. Alongside the phone, they found pieces of fabric, a rusted water bottle, and most disturbing, a shoe buried near a narrow ridge. It matched one Mark was seen wearing in the photo they posted before they vanished. Still, no bodies. No clear sign of what happened. Just evidence that they had, in fact, made it much deeper into the canyon than anyone expected. As news spread, old theories resurfaced. Some believed it was an accident, that they had wandered off trail and gotten lost. Others whispered about something darker. Locals started coming forward with strange stories: lights seen at night deep in the canyon, muffled voices in the wind, hikers who had felt watched. One retired ranger admitted he'd always avoided that part of the trail, calling it wrong, in ways you can't explain. Meanwhile, a new detail emerged. Mark had recently been in a heated dispute with someone just days before the hike. Someone who knew Red Rock Canyon all too well. The deeper investigators dug, the stranger the story became. The phone found near the ridge had no signal, but the internal data was recoverable. What they uncovered sent a chill through everyone. Involved a video file, time-stamped just hours after Mark and Lisa were last seen. It was only a few seconds long, shaky, recorded in a rush. The video showed Mark's face, dimly lit by the flashlight on Lisa's phone. He looked scared, whispering something barely audible. The words were hard to make out, but two stood out clearly: not alone. From that moment, the tone of the case shifted. No longer treated as a simple hiking accident, Red Rock Canyon was now at the center of a possible criminal investigation. Detectives began re-examining everyone connected to Mark and Lisa, especially the man Mark had argued with just days before they disappeared, a former coworker named Brent, who had a history of shady business deals. According to friends, Mark had discovered something suspicious and planned to confront Brent. They argued at a local coffee shop. It got heated. Witnesses remembered Brent saying, "You don't want to make this worse for yourself."